25 July. I came up here an hour ago with Lucy, and we had a most interesting talk with my old friend, and the two others who always come and join him. He's evidently the Sir Oracle of them, and I should think must have been in his time a most dictatorial person. He will not admit anything, and downfaces everybody. If you can't out-argue them, he bullies them, and then takes the silence for agreement with his views. Lucy was looking sweetly pretty in her white lawn frock. She has got a beautiful color since she has been here. I noticed that the old man did not lose any time in coming up and sitting near her when we sat down. She's so sweet with old people. I think they all fell in love with her on the spot. Even my old man succumbed, and did not contradict her, but gave me double share instead. I got him on the subject of the legends, and he went off at once into a sort of sermon. I must try to remember it and put it down.
It be all full talk, lock, stock, and barrel. That's what it be, and naught else. These bands and wafts and boghosts and barghasts and bogles and all, and them is only fit to set bairns and dizzy women a-beldering. They be naught but air blabs. They, and all grams and signs and warnings, be all invented by parsons, and some bike bodies and railway touters to scare and scunner halflings, and to get folks to do something that they don't other inclined to. It makes me ireful to think of them. Why, it's them that, not content with printing lies on paper and preaching them out of pulpits, does want to be cutting them on the tombstones. Look here all around you in what earth ye will. All them steens holding up their heads as well as they can out of their pride is a cunt. Simply tumbling down with the weight of the lies wrote on them. Here lies the body, or the sacred to the memory, wrote on all of them, and yet in nigh half of them there bean't no bodies at all, and the memories of them bean't cared a pinch of snuff about, much less sacred. Lies, all of them. Nothing but lies of one kind or another. My gog, but it will be a queer scoderment at the day of judgment when they come tumbling up here in the death's arks, all juked together and trying to drag their tombstones with them to prove how good they was. Some of them trembling and dithering, with their hands that doesn't slippy from lying in the sea that they can't even keep their grip of them.
I could see from the old fellow's self-satisfied air and the way in which he looked round for the approval of his cronies that he was showing off, so I put in a word to keep him going. "Oh, Mr. Swales, you can't be serious. Surely these tombstones are not all wrong?"
"Yablins. There may be a poorish few not wrong, saving where they make out the people too good. For there be folk that do think a ball be like the sea, if only it be their own. The whole thing be only lies. Now look you here. You come here a stranger, and you see this Kirkgarth."
I nodded, for I thought it better to assent, though I did not quite understand his dialect. I knew it had something to do with the church. He went on.
"And you can't say that all these steens be aboon folk that be happed here, snogged and snug?"
I assented again.
"Then that be just where the lie comes in. Why, there be scores of these lay beds that be tomb as old Dunn's back a box on Friday night."
He nudged one of his companions. and they all laughed. And my Gog, how could they be otherwise? Look at that one, the aftest abaft the beer bank. Read it. I went over and read. Edward Spencer, Master Mariner, murdered by pirates off the coast of Andres, April 1854, AET 30. When I came back, Mr. Swales went on. Who brought him home, I wonder, to have him here, murdered off the coast of Andres, and you constated his body lay under? Why, I could name ye a dozen whose bones lie in the Greenland seas above. He pointed northwards, or where the currents may have drifted them. There be the steens around ye. Ye can with your young eyes read the small print of the lies from here. This Braithwaite Lowry, I knew his father, lost in the lively off Greenland in 20, or Andrew Woodhouse, drowned in the same seas in 1777, or John Paxton, drowned off Cape Farewell a year later, or old John Rawlings, whose grandfather sailed with me, drowned in the Gulf of Finland in 50. Do you think that all these men will have to make a rush to Whitby when the trumpet sounds? I have me antherums about it. I tell you that when they got here they'd be jumling and jostling one another that way that it would be like a fight up on the ice in the old days, when we'd be at one another from daylight to dark, and trying to tie up our cuts by the light of the aurora borealis. This was evidently local pleasantry, for the old man cackled over it, and his cronies joined in with gusto. But, I said, surely you're not quite correct, for you start on the assumption that all the poor people, or their spirits, will have to take their tombstones with them on the day of judgment. Do you think they will be really necessary? Well, what else be they tombstones for? Answer me that, miss. To please their relatives, I suppose. To please their relatives, you suppose. This he said with intense scorn. How will it please their relatives to know that lies is wrote over them, and that everybody in the place knows that they be lies? He pointed to a stone at our feet, which had been laid down as a slab, on which the seat was rested, close to the edge of the cliff. Read the lines on that Thruffstein, he said. The letters were upside down to me from where I sat, but Lucy was more opposite to them, so she leant over and read. Sacred to the memory of George Cannon, who died in the hope of a glorious resurrection on July 29, 1873, falling from the rocks at Kettleness. This tomb is erected by his sorrowing mother to her dearly beloved son. He was the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. Really, Mr. Swales, I don't see anything very funny in that. She spoke her comment very gravely, and somewhat severely. Ye don't see aught funny, ha, ha. But that's because ye don't go the sorrowing mother was a hell cat that hated him because he was crooked. A
regular lamiter he was, and he hated her so that he committed suicide in order that she mightn't get an insurance she put on his life. He blew nigh the top of his head off with an old musket that they had for scaring the crows with. 'Tweren't for crows then, for it brought the clags and the dopes to him. That's the way he fell off the rocks. And as to hopes of a glorious resurrection, I've often heard him say myself that he hoped he'd go to hell, for his mother was so pious that she'd be sure to go to heaven, and he didn't want to addle where she was. And now isn't that Steen at any rate?
He hammered it with his stick as he spoke.
A pack of lies. And won't it make Gabriel cackle when Geordie comes bunting up the grease with Tombstone balanced on his hump, and asks it to be took as evidence?
I did not know what to say, but Lucy turned the conversation as she said, rising up, "Oh, why did you tell us of this? It is my favourite seat, and I cannot leave it. And now I find I must go and sit in the grave of a suicide."
That won't harm ye, my pretty, and it may make poor Geordie gladsome to have so trim a lass sitting on his lap. That won't hurt ye. Why, I've sat here off and on for nigh 20 years past, and it hasn't done me no harm. Don't ye fash about them as lies under ye, or that doesn't lie there either. It will be time for ye to be getting scarred when you see the tombstones all run away with, and the place as bare as a stubble field. There's the clock, and I must gang. My service to ye, ladies."
And off he hobbled. Lucy and I sat a while, and it was all so beautiful before us that we took hands as we sat, and she told me all over again about Arthur and their coming marriage. That made me just a little heartsick, for I haven't heard from Jonathan for a whole month.